Ironman 70.3 Santa Cruz. This one's taking place September 7th, 2025. This is exactly what you're going to be getting. A nice beach finish. Very unique scenery out here. A single loop run, single loop bike. It is ideal conditions out here. Ocean swim, rolling bike, flat run, high air temperature targeted around 82, low around 55, average water temperature 63 out here. So translate that for you. What that means is wetsuit legal. Could be really hot, could be really cold. Make sure you plan for all weather conditions out here. Let's dive into the details for everyone out here. All right, so starting off with our swim, keep in mind that this is a ocean swim out here. You're going to be swimming around the little wharf out here. Starting right here, you're swimming around clockwise, just like that. Seeing that we do have these straight lines out here, that's going to set you up really, really well for a great swim, hopefully, right here. There might be a little bit of a current out there, depending on what it is, if it's going this way, whatever. You will have a direct line of sight, so just plan accordingly. You know you need to get to this corner out here, so if you have a little push this way, you need to just aim a little bit out into the abyss. If you are having a little push this way, just make sure you're targeting a little tighter on your sight lines, and that way you should swim straight. Pretty straightforward stuff out there. Ocean swim, you want to avoid the saltwater intake as best you can out there. Make sure you're sighting at the top of those waves, those crests, if there are any out there. That's going to set you up for success, especially as you get out towards the later portions of the swim, deeper water, that kind of stuff. But it's not too bad out there, right? So pretty straight shot for you out here. This is going to set up a lot of really, really strong swimmers really well. You'll typically find they kind of group together out here. What you need to do as a weaker swimmer is kind of find those feet out here. It's going to be a little bit more challenging for you in a water scene like this, but you can do it, all right? Stronger swimmers, your goal is to get through this race without, or the swim without totally going nuts out here, because you have the capability to do so in these ocean swims. And a lot of times the stronger swimmers really overdo it without anyone else kind of setting them off. They kind of set themselves off. So just be careful. You are your own worst enemy if you are a really strong swimmer out here. The colder water is another thing to worry about here potentially. So again, that's something else to plan for ahead of time. Taking on this second turn over here, this is going to be the point where a lot of athletes kind of bunch up. Most courses it's the opposite, but on this one they will be bunching up a little bit, and that is going to kind of continue, depending on where you are in your race, up to the finish line out there. Hopping out onto the beach, you're going to have a little bit of sand to deal with and navigate through the transition zone. If you do have the ability to kind of spray some off, that'd be great. If not, you're going to be dealing with it for a little bit of time here. No big deal. So that's our swim onto our bike out here. Bike, again, pretty straightforward. It's an out and back course. What that's going to look like is this. It's going to carry about 2,800 feet of elevation gain. As we follow along out here, you can see that we're just going out and we are just coming back. A nice out and back for you for your 70.3. The power profile, this is what it's going to look like. I'll get rid of speed so you can kind of see what it is. It looks really busy, but we'll walk through it in a second here. As we go over the course, make sure you are following along with our cyclist out here. This race is going to be what we are going to be kind of projecting for everyone is a headwind on the way out and a tailwind-ish on the way back. What it's going to look like for you is this. This is targeting, forecasting, whatever you want to say. This is forecasting a wind speed of about 7 miles an hour. I'm going to guess that's going to be probably a little higher out here. That's a pretty stable prediction out here. If it's different, it's different, right? This is what the wind could look like out here. This is our typical scenario right here. We have a great headwind for you. This is our course. We're going up and then back down. As we rotate throughout the days, you can see that there's really only two different patterns out here. It is going down or it is going up, and there's really no in between, right? It's pretty steady either way. I will say the only difference is if it is going from south to north out here, you'll see that the wind direction does have a nice little shift right through here for Santa Cruz. So that is something to watch out for on if the wind is going this direction. So as I scroll over the days over here, you can see that this is the case. Most days it is going north to south out here. So going back to our scenario out here, we are going to zoom out a little bit more to just see what is going on. And again, this is our area right down there. Wind coming down off of here, and it does cycle through here, so you do have a little bit of a channeling effect, which is just pretty cool, kind of like the Big Island. Um, and that happens at different points throughout the days, but it does happen right here. So this is typically why you are getting what you are getting out there on race day. Going back to our power profile, power analysis here, this is the course. It can kind of be broken into a couple different sections out here. So the first section out here, come up to our big hill, which we'll talk about in a second. Our power, if you look for the first section, you'll look at the last section. Since it is at out and back, you're going to be doing the exact same thing. Power on the first section right here is slightly higher for you eagle-eyed viewers than right over there. And this athlete does have about a 240 FTP, so keep that in mind as we are going through this, and you can see that that FTP mark is about right there. So there are a couple of places where you are going to be going above FTP in here. So back to our original thing, the first section and the last section. First section, it's into the headwind. Last section is with a tailwind. That is why there is a difference there. So this is one of the only races where you do have a little bit of a green light to go a little bit harder in the first initial stages here. More advanced athletes are going to definitely understand that. More, kind of newer people to the sport or people who haven't had a lot of experience will take that and run with it a little too far. That's not what I'm saying. Just make sure it is within your means for that first 15 miles. Most times you have to pull back anyways. This time is probably going to be no different here. So again, watch out. Now this section over here, this section is pretty even Steven in the terms of average power with beginning and end. That little turnaround is right there ish. Probably a bad arrow right there. All right, and the reason that you are seeing average power or similar powers throughout this little section over here is because this section is into the wind, this section is out or is with the wind, but you do have additional hills to climb on that section out there. So a lot of athletes will go out there. They're going to say, okay, I'm going to turn around out here and I am going to just take this tailwind. It's going to be a great free ride, and that's not the case at all. You still have a healthy amount of work to do during this section. Of course, your power is going to sky climbing back up the hill. And then another area that we've already kind of talked about twice is this last section over here. Your power is going to be a little bit lower than that first section, but that still means that you are going to need to be prioritizing aero. You are going to still be prioritizing pressure on the pedals, just constant pressure out here. That is a huge tip. And if you look at the where we are talking about right here, about mile 42, 43, there's still a ton of time on the bike left out here. So you can arrive at this spot totally spent, totally cooked, or you can arrive at this spot and simply maintain your speed, right? And that's going to really help your time. You're going to catch a lot of people if you're doing it right out there. If you do have the capability to increase that power as you go out here, again, you are going to continue to you're going to continue to pass people or put distance on where you are and where they are on in terms of the road. So that's our little super fast breakdown. Let's talk about, let's go back to our elevation just one more time so you can see here. So this first, let's call it 14 and a half miles out here. Elevation gain, you're going to have about 600 or 765 feet. You're going to have a max grade of about 3.7% out here. And you can see that most of these little inclines out here, this is where you're going to get the 3.6 out here. You're going to get from anywhere from 2.5 out here to a couple of 3s out here. And sometimes, a lot of times, you are going to be under that. All right, but there is a couple of times where you do have sharper elevations, but most of the time it's up here. That's why this is a rolling course. And believe it or not, you can take a lot of these, let's call them sharp uphills, right? And you can use the downhills before it preceding it to drive up these and really eat up these elevation points out here. So watch the surges out through these first couple of miles here. Going back to our power plan, you could see that there is a need for some surges to happen right here and here and here, right? But for you don't want to be going above that FTP mark again and again and again and again, especially the first 15 miles out here on race day. So going back out here, we are going to talk about the section that we have not yet out here, and that comes at about, let's call it 15.1-ish miles out here. The hill that's on everybody's mind right through here, you're going to get aid station right at the top, I believe. And again, this section, during this here, you are going to have that max grade of 6%. And the hill does come in a couple of different ways. It goes up once, you get a little soft spell, you go up again for a slight time, and then you do have a third finisher up here of that 3.6%. So really the bulk of this climb happens at the early onset of this towards the middle of this hill. So if you pace it correctly, it looks like a monster, but it's really not out there, all right? Again, we're using a lot of these downhills to drive the uphills, and if we zoom in on the second section of this race, through the turnaround and back down again here. This is our turnaround located right here. During this section, again, remember 2,800 feet of elevation. This section carries about 750 feet of that. This is going to be covering about 17 miles. So again, nothing super crazy here if you are a hill person out here. It's nothing crazy at all. If you are riding in, Florida or Maryland, that kind of stuff, Cambridge, then we're probably going to have a little chit chat on a little side conversation there. But for our purposes here, we're driving a lot of these downhills, going up the uphills. Trick during this section is going to be exactly what we talked about earlier in that power production phase. So we're going to highlight this section here for everybody. We're going to get rid of speed because obviously the speed will increase as we get through to the turnaround and come back down again right here. That's no news to anybody else, but the power largely stays the same. 199, 202. We're back to 201 out here, and so we're kind of splitting hairs. So again, something to keep in mind as you do that turnaround. Your power numbers shouldn't be plummeting 40, 50 watts, and you should just be carrying just a nice sail. It's not going to be the case out there on race day. Going back out here, we are going back out. We're going to unclick out here, and we are talking about the last section through here. 15-mile stretch, 720 feet of elevation gain, so pretty even. Last one had 750 feet of elevation, and I did not highlight this section out here, but this last 15 miles, very similar to the out in the back section that we just talked about. Again, if we look at the elevation gain versus elevation loss, it is pretty even. I mean, we're talking, 15 feet out there, I believe, 16 feet. So it's pretty even out here. Again, if you could keep the pressure on the pedals, you will find yourself in a great deal of race day success out here in terms of passing people and your overall time being what you want it to be out here. That's a huge, huge, huge thing out here. Going back to our little weather predictor out here, again, going north-ish, northwest-ish to south. The power predictor does drop in terms of wind speed. I would argue against that. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I don't think that unless it does do that little split thing that we talked about earlier. Then there would be a little bit of a case of that. But just keep an eye on the weather and plan accordingly. This is just one scenario of the millions of possibilities that could happen out there on race day. So through this little possibility here, if we decrease our drag slightly over this course, we are netting ourselves 30 seconds. Increasing our power by 1% simply saves us 41 seconds on this course. Shaving off a little bit of poundage, only going to net you 10 seconds. It will have bigger impacts if you are not up to your race weight, of course. Rolling resistance out here, a slight increase is going to net you 4-second gain out here. So, of course, what you should be striving to do right now is increase that power target. And for me on this course, I would be really targeting my drag out there for sure. That's going to save me 2 minutes and 30 seconds if I'm able to do that from the time now leading up to the race. So, that's just me. Of course, you can attack this definitely a million different ways. Zones out here, most of the time spent in zone 3, 70.3. We're going to have about 27 minutes in zone 4 of our 6-zone model out here. Plenty of time in zone 1 and zone 2. We've got 22 minutes in zone 2, 25 minutes in zone 1 out there. And that is that for our bike course. Moving on to our run course. Run course is a single loop course out here. They're saying it's got about 462 feet of elevation gain. You're going to start off running right along the ocean out there, zigzagging our way back into nothingness back through here. It's going to be really great. It's awesome. You're going to have a lot of great views out here, a lot of unique things that most athletes don't get to experience in races, so that's going to be really cool. Back through the neighborhoods again for you towards your finish on the beach out here. What does that look like for you? It's 460 feet, I believe they said, 487 feet, 490 feet for us. So pretty similar stuff for us. So think back to our weather out here. If the weather is pushing in this direction, then a couple of sections that are going to be really feeling the wind are right along the coast out here, right? If it is whipping around out here, that's going to feel really great in these sections here, 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 possibly there, right? It's going to feel really great for you, especially if it's a hot day. If it's not a hot day, then, it might not be. If it is a little bit of a cooler, challenging day, I would, it's going to be attacked a little differently. We're going to do this like it's going to be a hot, hot day for us. We're also going to stick with our plan of the wind going this direction out here. What that means for you is during this initial stretch out here, it's going to be like normal running out here for most individuals. As we make this right hand bend out here, this section is likely going to be into the wind out here, and if it is an aggressive day, this is going to affect your effort levels and how you attack this section. If you are doing power, realize you're probably going to have to slow down a little bit to account for the extra air power that is preventing you from going out there. If you are not used to running in heat, you're probably going to have to slow down again, right? You're probably going to be hit with that. So make sure if you are not actively planning on doing heat training now, you are starting to implement that into your training because our race is in September and that's right around the corner here. This is going to last pretty much this whole little section out here. After you hit this little zigzag section out here, you're going to hit the second or third aid station out there for you on race day. And that's going to come that's going to be really beneficial for you. As you make this way over here, you're going to likely experience less wind out here, but you will experience more heat out here. That's going to be your trend until you get to about this aid station out here. As you get a little closer to the water, remember that wind is coming in this direction, which means it's going to be flying out over here. So this section, you're going to have a great tailwind, and that can be really good. It can be really bad. If you're kind of on the edge of where you should be pacing and nutritionally, you might feel a little bit cool. If that's the case, alarm bells should be going off and you should be actively changing what's going on with you. But then as we make our turn back around, you're likely going to go back into the heat a little bit. This section is going to be a great tailwind section out here, and that's going to last pretty much for the majority of the race here for the most part. As we make our way back down to the water again, the temperatures will slowly start to come down, but it's not going to come down 15, 20 degrees out there. So just be aware of that on race day and don't expect that. Expect the heat to kind of bother you for a while out here. Something that we haven't talked about, and you will finish all the way on the water and then go to your stand finish. But the thing that we have not talked about is the coverage out here. So as we're making our way along out here, there is not a lot of spots that you are going to experience some shade, some reprieve from the elements out here. That is obviously one of them that we just went through, right? But for the most part, you are not going to be, here's another one right through here. Here, you are not going to be secluded and shielded from the sun or the elements out here. So if it's a hot, hot day, there's really not a lot of places to hide aside from spot 1, spot 2 through here. So plan accordingly out here. Make sure you are aware of the heat. Make sure that you are respecting the heat even if you do train in it all the time. It's not a terrible idea to start off a little bit slower and see how you're feeling, get a good gauge of things, and then progress from there. When we do our run, in terms of elevation and effort and all that fun stuff, again, think back to our wind. This is normal running out through here. We have only 480 feet of elevation gain. So for the most part, elevation is not a huge factor on this course. Especially for the first 3 miles. As we progress through here, right, we are normal running. It's pretty flat through here. That's good. It's also bad, right? A lot of athletes really overdo this section. Be very, very, very careful here, okay? This is a suckers area right through here, these first 2.5 miles. As we progress, we do get up to about 0.9%. So this is our first real challenge out here on race day. You're also mixed with a couple of ups and downs throughout here. So this is, again, coming on the back of this hill out here. This is the first real challenge that you're going to experience on race day. Don't ignore it. Really check in with yourself and see what's going on. And you really should not overdo that because the real challenge of the course is climbing out, climbing away from the water here. We have about, real challenge. This section over here, we have about 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, and 2% of elevation out here. And after you hit 4.2%, you're going to be climbing to about 5.5% for a brief moment in time. After that, you are slowly going to fall down. And again, this is all going to be into the wind again. And we are going to have a steeper downhill section. Anytime I see that in the race course, alarm bells go off in my head. Watch out for this section. This point in time over here should be a really great section for you. If you've overdone it for the first couple of miles, this section is not going to be very fun. It's going to be kind of a good little scenery route over here. As you keep progressing, it does get a little bit more challenging through here. Not super violent, but not flat either out here. So this is going to be another challenge for your quads and your running form, especially. As you get out of this great spot over here, you are going to have to climb out of here. Hit with 4.5%-ish, 5%, and then you are going to continue ramping upwards here. Good news is hopefully you will have a tailwind back through here. After you get past mile 9 and you start making your way south again towards the ocean, you are going to be greeted with great downhills. Again, these downhills do last from about mile, let's call it 9.1, and that lasts until 10.3, so over a mile. Over a mile of downhill, never a good thing, especially that late in the race, so make sure your running form is on point. Make sure you are setting yourself up for success during that section. Not very often we talk about setting yourself up for a downhill, but here we are. After you get to mile 10.3, you're running along the coast. It's happy days pretty much all the way up there. If you are having heat trouble, if you are overheating, you should, I believe, have 2 aid stations back to the finish line. One at mile 10.2, one at mile 11.9, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Before you head off to success and glory at the finish. That's 70.3 2025 Santa Cruz. I wish everyone the best of luck out there. Any coaching needs, any consultations or things like that, please reach out. Contact info is down below. Good luck, everybody.